This is a 1935 Ford. It was driven by Gene Cole at Mid-State Speedway in 1960. My father and I just finished it up for this show, so this is a replica of that car. But Gene was a pretty big winner with this car. It had a 4 3/8 by 3 3/8 flathead in it. It was built in Willie Woost's garage in Edmiston, New York, and did a lot of winning. So you can see the trophies on the front of the car there. He won at the Brookfield Fair, and you want to hear it, Morris. He did most of his winning with this car. So the end of the car was at the Lebanon Valley in the same year, 1960. They went out there to Lebanon, and Gene said they kept jogging, telling him to go faster and faster for the drop of the green, and by the time they dropped the green, he was wide open. So they deposited him over the bank and into the Pittsfield Hotel, or crash room there, or whatever. But you come around this side here, the car, like I said, had a big stroker, flathead in it, and did a lot of winning here at Morris, which prompted them to add a little commentary for the other guys in the pits, which was Quit Your Belly Aching. And so anyways, it's been about not quite a year's project. Scratch built car, frame was patched up, and then we started working on the body. The body had to have the wheel wells moved back, it had been moved forward. Fenders and everything were just piles. The engine wasn't much. So it was a father and son project. It took about since last October to get to this point here today. So, anyways, that's one of our cars.
What you got under the hood?
Under the hood of this one is a small flathead. we have Offenhauser heads on it, cam. Did a valve job. Needs a little bit better pistons. Could have been bored. So it runs okay, but it's we're not going to fire it up for anybody. There's not any mosquitoes around, so we don't need to. This is the 43 that replaced it over here. This was driven this would be the next car out of the Woost's garage. The Mouseville Monster was driven by Moose Carey. Originally, this car was built for Gene. So when that car got totaled at Lebanon Valley, they built this one. It was painted green with gold numbers, yellow numbers. And about mid-1961, the insurance company that Gene worked for had said, you're either going to be a race car driver or an insurance salesman. And he made the right choice. So anyways, they got Moose Carey to drive the car, repainted it. And Moose did very well at Morris here as well with this car. It ran at 5 Mile Point too. Waterloo. They went to Lebanon Valley a couple times. The 711 is a replica of Dave Kniesel's Bug that ran at, you probably remember that, at 5 Mile. So that's actually a Midwestern super modified that looked enough like Dave's car for us to put the numbers on. Nice car. It was car doesn't have any real history of its own. It was built in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and we got it out of Indiana. But it's a nice car. Gets sideways real quick. The S33 was a McCready Motors car built by Fred DeCar, and this version of it was actually driven by a fellow named Don Hendenberg, which would have been before Billy Wimble. Say Hendenberg, and then Chuck Mahoney drove for him as well, and that's the era of this car here. So it's 57, 58 in that area. And the P13 is an original Tommy Wilson car that was owned by Charlie Pierce, so that's hence the P. P for Pierce. It was raced out of Deansboro, New York, and this was a dominant car as well. Tommy would be started first at Lafayette Speedway. They would put him on the pole and count him a lap down. and he would come around and lap the field to win the race still. So he had really big motors. I mean, the stuff when we bought this car, there was still pistons around, and we didn't take them because we couldn't use them. We don't have enough block left to make them work. So anyways, 33 Ford. Came right out of Pierce's garage in Deansboro. Nice original car. That one could be a hot rod. That one rides nice. And that's our stuff here.
Well, one of the many drivers going into the Mid-State Vintage Hall of Fame this weekend is Wink Hinckley. And Wink, you throwed a lot of fans down at 5 Mile Point Speedway, but I'm sure you have great memories here at Mid-State as well.
Yes, I do. From Bill Rose to all the guys that are here. The car was a 56 Ford. When we first started out, I was back in 1971. I was a youngster then, and just proud to be here. Glad we still had the car to show off.
How'd you wind up getting hooked on this sport in the first place?
Through our dealership, W.S. Hinckley & Sons, Bill Rose. We sponsored him, and at the time he had an extra car. Said, why don't you give it a try? So they brought the car to me, dropped it off, and as the pictures show there on the board, we came with red primer and shoe polish. That's how we started.
Okay, well, the car looks like it's seen some laps here. Tell us a little bit about the car itself, chassis, engine, everything.
It's a 56 Ford frame chassis, and we had changed the sheet metal to a 67 Fairlane, which in the long run my brother and father drove. I drove it as a 56 Ford at the time. We had a 302 in it at the time. We must have grenaded that because it's not in there anymore. So, but they want us to bring it out, and it's been stored for probably 35 years in a barn.
Okay, going back to the racing years, who was the one guy at the track that you just had to beat every week?
I had to beat Bill Rose. I mean, he got me started, and he was good. There was Earl Newhorter, the Holland brothers, and father-son team out of Jersey, I believe they were from. It's just a bunch of people from around here. It was fun. It was family.
What was the highlight of your racing career?
I guess your first feature win, which was in '87 at Fonda.
And of all the tracks around the area, do you have a favorite? Well, a present company accepted, obviously. We won't put you on the spot. But of all the other tracks you raced at, which was your favorite?
I liked Afton Speedway. I got a lot of good luck there. Had some feature wins in the sportsman division, and I had fun.
Is there any one person that you met through this sport that stands out in your mind?
I got to thank my father. He's passed away now, but that's how I got started, the money and everything. So I got to look up to Dad.
When did you know it was time to hang up the helmet?
I don't really know. My wife asked me that question, and I said, I guess it's just time. I don't know.
Well, Wink, on behalf of thousands of fans over the years, thanks for all the exciting racing you brought to the sport and your continued support of this sport.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Back to McCready Motors in Sherburne, where when I worked for them in the shop, and they were also in racing. So eventually, it turned out we did it ourselves, and they've been doing it ever since.
Okay.
On a limited basis right now.
And racing back then was a family affair. Standing next to us, your brother Howard.
Right. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how you got involved. Did you drive as well, or were you the wrench?
Just helped on the car. Yeah.
Where did the love of racing start with you guys?
Oh boy, it goes way back.
I think it started out in the back of our mom's house there. Remember
Somewhere.
they had the little car we had out there?
Oh yeah.
I think that's where it started.
And just kept elevating, but a lot of things have the cost of racing and everything is cut it back down, but still there's always find a way to do it, you know. Brent and Aaron and Darlene are a big part of this whole thing.
Now, can you think back to the first race you ever went to, Howard?
No, probably Fonda. I think probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the racing like back then compared to nowadays?
Well, it was very good back then. I don't know how it is nowadays up at Fonda on them tracks, but It was good. Good racing.
Now, being invited into a Hall of Fame is a pretty big deal. Obviously, you accomplished a lot during your racing career here at Morris.
Oh, sure, a lot, because it's close by, and it was dirt time, and that at that point in time, we hadn't thought about even doing anything other than that. And since then, Brent and Aaron and we've all gone into asphalt stuff, and now they have been doing Daytona and places like that.
Now, who was the one guy that when you strapped in the car, you weren't going to be happy unless you finished ahead of him?
Oh boy, who was the guy with
You always wanted to beat.
Bill Wimble?
He was a tough one, was he?
Oh yeah, McCready Motors.
Well, I'm sure you also spent a lot of time in Victory Lane celebrating some of the wins. Is there any one win, Howard, that stands out in your mind above all others?
Probably that one up to when they run with Wimble, up with Fonda. That was about the best I can remember.
And you John managed to beat Bill Wimble, huh?
Tried to. Almost did.
Okay, who are some of the other people that helped throughout the years, both sponsors and people that worked on the race car?
Boy, there's so many of them, it's really hard to tell. But Freddie Decar and Bill Wimble, all those guys, there was hundreds of them, but it all just elevated from all the way up to Brent and Aaron driving.
Well, you just mentioned a couple of guys that are already in the Hall of Fame, so you're joining some very, very special company today.
I guess. Thanks a lot.
All right, congratulations to both of you.
Well, everybody comfortable? As comfortable as you can be in our air-conditioned hall here. Let me first start with a welcome to everybody for taking time out of your busy weekend. Wow, it's always such a busy time of the year, and each time that we sit down and forecast when are we going to have this and so forth and so on, it's a challenge. It's a challenge right from the get-go. But nonetheless, we're able to put it together to the best of our ability, and we're not professionals by any stretch of the imagination, but we certainly do have an awful lot of fun putting it together, and we're so fortunate to have such great people to obviously be with. First of all, let me start by thanking the sponsors, because as you know, anytime you do any kind of a program and activity, you got to have some financial support, or you just can't pull it off. And so when you're going to give out trophies and when you're going to advertise and you're going to do these different things, obviously a place to have it, you need some financial support. And we have been so fortunate to have financial support from the Gates Cole Insurance Company, namely Gene Cole. Gene, where are you? You're right back here, ladies and gentlemen. This man has been instrumental in the get-go to supporting this particular activity, and we certainly thank Gene Cole, for continuing to do what he can do for the Hall of Fame show and a number to so many other things. We are very fortunate. Also, another main sponsor is Colonial Ridge Golf Course, basically being represented today by Brent Cobb. Brent, where are you? You rascal, I know you're hiding somewhere. He's right over there, ladies and gentlemen, with the blue shirt on. Yep, the driver of the great red number 45, Brent Cobb, who spends a great deal of his time. He's going to be a professional golfer soon. So keep watch, all right? I tell him all the time, I watch TV and I haven't quite caught him yet. But he says, stay tuned, all right, because sooner or later he's going to be on there. You know that pro thing they do? Yeah. He's looking forward to, traveling all over the world and, with his golf club. So he's working on that right up here at Colonial Ridge. And those fine folks are, again, another very supporting sponsor of our program. We certainly have to thank the Fair Board. And the president of the Fair Board was here earlier. Is he still here, Mike? Do you know? He's cooking. The Fair Board has agreed to provide the refreshments over in the concession stand, and the president of the Otsego County Fair Board is over there working away, making sure you got plenty to eat. So don't hesitate to stop by and say hello, and thank the Otsego County Fair Board for allowing us to use, obviously, the grounds for the day to have the Hall of Fame show. I mean, there can't be, as far as I'm concerned, a better place to have the Central New York State Hall of Fame show at the famous Mid-State Speedway. I mean, you're here, you know, and it's there, and not much has changed since you left. All right? For those of you that have had a chance to go out and walk around it and see it, as I was talking to Bob Hackle, he said, wow, I don't remember it being this big. But it's still there, and in all of its glory. And I mean, there's so many times when I just stand and look at it, and I can still hear the roars, you know. And as a kid, I can remember being so scared to hear Moose Carey and Stitch Mariano come flying down through there and backfire with those flatheads, and it would make me jump out of my seat because the echo up into the grandstand was so much. But we certainly want to thank the Fair Board for continuing to let us use the grounds. The members of the Mid-State Antique Stock Car Club, many of which are here today and have brought a piece that they have to put on display for you. Some of these pieces are the original piece, folks. Some of these, things are very, very hard to find, and even harder to keep, running and the brakes working. And yesterday, the 65 went for a little cruise and experienced some interesting mechanical problems, and that's why it's kind of just sitting over there. We're mad at it right now. The Brooks House of Barbecue car, it had to be towed in from the tractor parade that they have last night. But I'll let. Well, that happened apparently before it started going forward. I don't know exactly. Maybe I'll let Mike do that one. Certainly those are the people that we want to thank. And the craziest person of all in this building is a person who volunteers to do the chairmanship of the Hall of Fame show. Ladies and gentlemen, none other than Mike Newell. And where did he run off to? He's probably running and now he's over here. Yeah. See, he tried to get away, but I told him, please don't run away, Mike. You do so much for this. And, so little recognition. Obviously, it's a nightmare, and he'll be the first to tell you. But anyway, he can tell you all about the 65 and how much he's enjoyed, taking it for a spin last night with the tractor folks and being towed in by a tractor. Good thing he had a chain. Oh, golly. We have to thank Mike Wilcox, ladies and gentlemen, right here, who helps provide the sound system so that obviously we can take care of all that. Mike is better known as Sparky because he also is the electrician for the fairgrounds during the Otsego County Fair Week and takes care of all the electrical problems that typically exist throughout the fairgrounds. So we certainly are fortunate to have Mike Wilcox here with us, who is a grandson of Pop Wilcox. Yes, the 32, if you were wondering. All right. I asked him here just a short minute ago, and he said, yeah, Pop Wilcox was my grandfather. So Mike Wilcox with us here today. All right. Well, let's start this thing off in a very special way with a young lady from right here in the Morris Central School District that has volunteered to come forward today, ladies and gentlemen, and sing for us the national anthem. So if you'd please stand and recognize Cassie Boss from right here in the village of Morris. Cassie is going to sing for you live the national anthem. Thank you, Cassie.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. 13-year-old Cassie Boss from right here in Morris. What do you think, huh? Yeah? Stand right up there and do that? That's not a easy song to sing. Yes, indeed. Most of us can only sing it in the shower, but yeah, there's a great deal. Next up would be an invocation, please, if you would, from our deacon, Gary Norman. Gary Norman.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we pray that you will visit this gathering with your guidance, wisdom, and support. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, that we may serve you in all that we do and say. Protect us, inspire us to fulfill your purpose, and lead us in right paths for your sake. All this we ask in the name of Christ our Lord. Amen. And one more quick thing. Back in the 60s and 70s, Brother Bill Frazier was sort of a traveling chaplain with some of the stock car circuits. And he wrote a stock car racer's prayer, which many of you have probably heard. And I didn't want to rip him off, so I found another one that I thought would be appropriate for this gathering today. So if you will indulge me, we'll say that one. Lord, we pray in this worldly race that you would help us set the pace and teach us not to strip our gears as we roll through our allotted years, to go all out in the straightaway and not get sideways in the fray, to feather the brakes and hug the curve and help us not to lose our nerve. And though we just go round and round, the track for us is holy ground. So in the end, no matter our place, our prize will be to see your face. Amen.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, many thanks to Gary Norman. At this point, we'd like to have an insight and a review of some of the Race Car Club and the Hall of Fame show from our president of the Mid-State Antique Stock Car Club, Rick Perry, and one of the originators of the Hall of Fame show. So we'll give Rick a chance to give you some of the, things about how this craziness all got started. Rick?
Thank you, John. 2016 has been a very successful year for our club. We formed a division this year known as Show and Go. And a lot of our club members actually had the chance to take their cars out on the track and perform with them. Not in a race, but in what we call a static show. We've done 6 shows this year, our first time out, and it's been a huge success. Through it all, we wound up getting 4 write-ups in various publications pertaining to our club, which I feel is a big feather in our caps, considering the other clubs, they race, they fall apart, they reorganize, they restructure, and they battle with one another, where with our organization, if we have a problem, we bring it to the table, we address it then, and we put it to rest then and there. And with that, I'd like to thank the club members for taking the time out of their busy schedules with a lot of graduation parties and weddings, for taking the time and come and support this, because without you guys, it would not have been the success that we really pulled off this year, and we've got a lot of review on it. And with that, I'd like to see if we can't get this show started, but I'd like to make a special announcement here. This summer I was down the Fonda Speedway, and one of our local drivers did up 2 of his doors on his Pro Stock. And I was in the garage during the week, and I saw the doors, and he said, "I got to win, and it's going to come tonight." I said, "Okay, I'll see it when I believe it." Well, don't you know it's Hall of Fame night, and they honored Dick Schoonover for his achievements, put him in the Fonda Hall of Fame. Tommy Denton went on to win his heat. Tommy Denton also led every lap of the feature, and put a smile on that Schoonover family's face one more time. And to me, to be part of that and be able to present one of them doors, which hangs now in the Hall of Fame in Fonda, was quite an honor. So with that, I'd like to get started with our Hall of Fame inductions.
Well, thank you very much, Rick. And let's kick it off with introducing the greatest mini stock driver of all time, ladies and gentlemen, with us today, Mr. Bob Hackle. Now we send out, after we've made the nominations, we send out a profile sheet and ask the drivers to fill them out so that we can fill you in on the accomplishments that these people have done, which is just incredible. I mean, it's amazing when you begin to start seeing this. Anyways, I'm not going to tell you how old Bob is. I'm going to let you guess. And we're going to take right off, and most of you know that he's from Albany. All right, so certainly was never a short hop for Bob Hackle to be seen at a racetrack. As I mentioned to him, well before the days of I-88, you were traveling down to Morris on good old Route 7, and certainly he knows all the towns from Albany to Binghamton quite well, I'm sure. Actually, his father, Buzz Hackle, raced at Burden Lake, Fonda, Brookfield, and Morris from 48 to 53. And he also raced at the Syracuse State Fairgrounds and finished 8th. He was the most influential person in Bob's life. Bob began his participation at the age of 24, and he started driving for himself in 1968. The first car that he had was a genuine Mopar, 57 Plymouth with a 318 in it. The car numbers are the great number 97, as you can see right across from the hall, one of his mini mods. And a number 77 and a 9 was also found on the cars. As far as the tracks that he's competed at, well, man, from Rockland, Illinois to tracks in Canada, all the way to Florida, most tracks in between. So as I told you, this man has many miles. As he told me, that trailer out there has got over 1 million. So it's been there and seen that, okay? His first feature win was up at Lebanon Valley in 1970, and he started racing here at Morris in 71 when the folks from Morris invited 4 cylinders and to see just what that would do. Well, Bob Hackle found this place very well because he won all 4 out of 4 races that we had here at Morris. But he's been in a total of over 400 races that he has won. All right, he's been well over 400, but he's won over 400. Yes, indeed. Track championships, well, golly, too many to list. His last race was at Devil Bowl in Vermont in 1986, and the most memorial moment that he had in racing was at Pocono in 1978 when he won it. He certainly helps now his son and his grandson's racing careers. His favorite race car driver was certainly his father. Toughest competitor was Ricky Hussick. His best racing friend was his wife Ann, who is now deceased. The accomplishments, well, trophying for passing the Rockford, Illinois, most cars in the history of the track. Special recognition, well, dirt modified win for the New York State. And other notable mentions, Saratoga Hall of Fame, Lebanon Valley Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, this man is just unbelievable. Continues to keep restoring VW bugs and following his grandson's racing. He certainly wouldn't do anything else. He certainly loves building VW motors. I saw one last year at the Lebanon Valley Flea Market, a fresh race-ready Type 1 VW engine. There it was, ready to go. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you the great Bob Hackle.
What a pleasure it is to be here and an honor. I did not know that this was going on. He called me and I said, absolutely, I'll come. Morris was one of our favorite spots because my wife loved Brooks Chicken. Yep. Yeah, and it's been an enjoyable thing, and I've raced them all my life and always enjoyed them. I raced a Plymouth for a couple of years, and then Volkswagen come along, and that's what I've worked on since 1965. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
And we have a special person in the house today, Ron Hedger, who would like to come up and say a few words in regards to Bob Hackle.
Rick called me and asked me if I'd come down and talk about Bob. I've known Bob a long time. I've made a career of writing in Stock Car Magazine and Speedway Illustrated and so on and so forth. I write about guys that are really good, and Bob is the best. But he's also a little bit of a character. He's interesting. I went down and started pawing through my cases of magazines, and I couldn't find the story that I wrote about him. But I went back about 4 computers ago and found the original file. So in a minute, I'm going to read a few quotes from Bob back in the day. But first, I want to do an advertisement for the Saratoga Auto Museum. I'm the race car guy there. Bob was gracious enough to let us have his car for a while. But every Thanksgiving weekend, Saturday, it's a tradition. The wives go shopping, the men come to Saratoga. We have a great time with the old timers. We call it Lost Speedways. This year, I'm going to have Bill Ladderbush talk about Catamount Stadium. Ken Perrot's going to talk about Waterloo. A lot of people here used to race there. We're going to do a segment on quarter midgets. Herb Annister is going to come and talk about board track racing way back. And I'm going to do a segment, you may have heard of Dave Lape. One year he cleaned up everybody's butt in New York with a 44B. We think of Dave in the 22, but he ran the 44B one season, won 24 or 25 races, lost 10 because he snapped the input shaft off halfway through the feature, and then he went back to his 22. But I'm going to have the car and I'm going to interview Dave, so that's going to be our main segment. Everybody likes free. I got a pass for 2 people. We always do trivia up there. Bob and I decided the trivia we're going to do, he used to race twice on Sunday with his mini stock. Tell us the 2 tracks you can get in free. What's that? Mid-State and Utica Rome. That's one of them. Anybody know the other one?
I said Mid-State and Utica Rome.
No, that's one answer, but he had 2 possibilities. Bob.
Twin Valleys, and then Utica.
He used to do Twin Valleys too. Here's your pass.
Somebody else we talk about better.
Somebody. Here.
You're a valued customer. Would you tell my wife that, please?
That's why you send her shopping the day you come to Saratoga. But digging back in about Bob, we had before that he started in 70 and retired in 87 when he ran what he called a tube frame rocket ship. That's the car outside. Not your average bug. But what really got me was his schedule. His wife Ann used to say Bob would call in the middle of the day, say, put the stuff in the refrigerator, stop cooking, we're going to go racing. But here's his schedule, in Bob's words. We'd start Tuesday night at the Norwood Arena in Massachusetts, about 2.5 hours away. Wednesday, I'd go west of Perry, about 4.5 hours. Thursday was 4.5 hours to Catamount Stadium in Vermont. Then Friday, it was either Albany, Saratoga, or 5 hours to Dundee. Saturday was 5 Mile Point, 2.5 hours, or Lebanon Valley. Sunday, we'd go to Twin Valleys or Morris, then Utica Rome at night. Monday was go-karts with my son. So all you ladies that think your husband's always in the garage and never home, be thankful you weren't married to Bob Hackle. So I asked Bob about working, because as one of the gentlemen said, he made his life working on VWs. Bob says we always got back to work, but a lot of times it was 10 a.m. before I got out of bed and got down to the shop. They wore out 10 cars, so he bought a new crew cab, and the kids grew up in the back. Who likes to go to Florida? A lot of us seniors like to go to Florida. Bob's wife's favorite trip was Florida. We'd leave Thanksgiving morning for St. Petersburg, race there, go to Volusia, and be home for work Monday. In the winter, we'd go back, win 4 out of the 5 races. That paid for Ann's vacation. I asked him about favorite tracks and drivers. I love Lebanon Valley and Pocono, but Grandview was the most fun ever. High banks, short straights, you just put your foot in it and hung on. Bugsy Stevens was the most fun to race with. You may remember Bugsy was National Modified Champion for a while, but he'd moonlight in one of Bob's extra 97s. I drove over him at Albany, Saratoga. All Bugsy could say was, "Boss, give me a minute next time and I'll get right out of your way." That's how fast Bobby was. He said Fulton was the most fun on asphalt. They'd start 80 cars, lined up 10 wide, tell you to pass where you could. I saw one of those races, and he did pass a lot of cars. The last thing I'll mention, a lot of the guys here raced before you had to make weight. That's a big deal now. You'll see somebody go out in the mud, buzz the back tires to fill the back of the car up with mud. Danny Johnson's made a career out of that. But Bob Hackle used to be pudgier than he is now. But one time he was so close to making weight, he had to let the guy put his helmet back on. They talked the promoter into letting him put his helmet on to make weight. That's how close Bobby was. Bobby was a precision guy, right on the line. I've had a lot of heroes, and Bobby's up at the top of the list. Thanks for letting me come by. One last comment. Way back before I got in the magazine and newspaper business, my dad raced out here, but I didn't recognize the track today. There's no dust.
Bob, congratulations. Thank you very much. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Bob Hackle. Yes, indeed. You're welcome. And if you haven't had a chance to take a look at that beautiful 97, please do. All right, walk around that rascal and look inside of it and under it and all around it. And what a beautiful, beautiful piece. And that's the way I always remembered him every time, and he wears. So congratulations to Bob Hackle. Next up, this is a gentleman that all of us know and perhaps have known because this is the third of a brothers that have certainly overwhelmed us with their competitiveness, their contributions to racing. People that are just absolutely fabulous in my mind, that have been with this business for a long, long time. And we're fortunate today to have all three of them here. And certainly all three of them are a member of my heroes list, that's for sure. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you Gary Beagle. Now, most of you should know that the Beagle family from the Binghamton area, all right, and the beautiful Don's Automotive Mall and the Gary's U-Pullet facility, I know those people have kept me on the road for many, many years and continue to do so today, certainly with children. Gary's U-Pullet is one of my favorite places. I tell my wife I'm going to the mall, and she said, "Where?" I said, "To Gary's U-Pullet." "Oh, okay, I understand." And that's how that works out. Well, certainly the most influential person to Gary was his brother Don and Roger, who are both here today. Would you please stand, Don and Roger? Where are they? They're here somewhere. There's Don Beagle, ladies and gentlemen, the driver of the 29, and Roger, the driver of the 27. Yep, there they are with us today. We're so fortunate. Certainly his brothers, Don and Roger, he grew up watching Don and then Roger race, and of course helping them on their cars. He started to participate when he was 18. And in 1970 is when he started driving. He owned his own car with his father, Don Sr. What type of car was it? Genuine 56 Chevrolet. Yes, indeed. The number 29. Yeah, that's a famous number. The tracks that he competed at were 5 Mile Point, Penn Can, Morris, and up in Weedsport. His first feature win was at Penn Can back in 1971. He started racing here in 1971. He's won 2 features approximately. And his last race was in 77 down at 5 Mile Point. The most memorial moment in his racing career, Don, Roger, and Gary finished 2, 3, and 4 in a feature at 5 Mile Point. How's that? The most memorial moment in his racing career off the track was the Beagle Racing family, and a write-up that was in the press, the Binghamton Press. His favorite race car driver, the great Jeff Gordon. One of his toughest competitors was Dick Longstreet, the late Dick Longstreet, who we've lost here recently, that drove the Apple House beautiful number 41s. Boy, if you followed late model racing, you couldn't have ever missed Dick Longstreet's beautiful, beautiful race cars, absolutely immaculate number 41s. And his best racing friend, Mike Colston, who we also have here today, ladies and gentlemen, sitting right over there next to Don Beagle. Yes, indeed. Special races won, yeah. There's a multi-track champion. Yes, indeed. Some of the special races won. He won Eastern States late model race at Honesdale, PA Fairgrounds. Some other notable mentions: he sponsored many cars and continues to do that. And then, of course, Gary's You Pull It. Most notably, Chuck Akulis, Mike and Joey Colston, Joe Donahue Jr., Jim Gabriel Jr., Lee Sherwood, and lots of hot rods and street stocks. He's hundreds of street stocks. Yes, indeed. Doesn't take you long to go to a racetrack and find Gary's You Pull It on the side of the race car. Anything that you'd done differently? Well, he would have maintained some of his cars better and had some more commitment to it. Today he likes to collect some vintage cars and motorcycles and travel around with his motorhome and his motorcycle and be with his granddaughters. Ladies and gentlemen, Gary Beagle. There's a beautiful picture of the 29 on there once again. Ladies and gentlemen, Gary Beagle.
Well, thank you. I want to thank all of the people that put this on. I'm honored, humbled, not sure if I'm deserving being in the class with some of these other guys, but I really appreciate it. And I did race at Morris here a few times. I'll tell you a quick story about the first time. We were headed this car right here, the 57 Chevy. I was used to racing on 5 Mile Point and Penn Can quarter-mile tracks that were pretty round. So we came up here with that car, put higher gears in it, and at the end of the straightaway I got quite a surprise because I was going a heck of a lot faster than I'd ever gone before in that thing, and bumped a couple of people, spun one out, but ended up winning the heat, and really liked the track once I got used to it. But when I came in out of the heat, the funny part was all my guys were standing around and laughing at me, and I said, "What's funny?" And that car we had built, it was probably one of the first late models, is what the class was then, that I took the car all apart and built it right from the frame up, and I had 4 bolts holding the roof on, and 6 bolts in the side held the body on. When I got halfway, 3/4 down the straightaway, I noticed a lot of light coming in the car. Well, we weren't worried much about the aerodynamics in those days, and he said when I got in the middle of the corner, the roof went like that. So we knew we needed more bolts at that time. And we were running pretty good in the feature too, and lost the right rear tire. And that time, I had all the guys that worked with me on the car were younger than me. We were a pretty young bunch. I was 19. And Joe Donahue over here was the youngest one, and so he was the tire chaser. So somewhere over here, I hope they're not here, but somebody had a nice restored 53 Chevy pickup with a big tire right in the door. That's my story. Thank you.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Gary Beagle. Those stories are just priceless. I remember when I called Bob Hackle and told him that we wanted to induct him at the Morris Fairgrounds. He said, John, have they mowed the infield? Because there's a VW wheel and tire out there somewhere. We could never find it. The grass was so high. Oh, golly. So those are the first two. And that completes my part of it. And I'll turn it over to Rick Perry.
Next up is a father and son duel. Frank E. Wright and Frank N. Wright. Frank E. Wright started racing in 1946 at the Vernon Speedway. He competed in the Old Flowered Flathead division, running up there with his car number 35. In 1946, Hermes Strange Texaco in New Berlin, they built a 38 Ford coupe with a flathead, number 35. That car also raced at Morrison Vernon. Some of his most memorable moments was racing with Ralph Redstead when he was a neighbor and playing in the V8 car that they had next to the garage. Many years later, he had the privilege of handing Ralph his first feature win checkered flag in 1966. After spending a couple hard weeks of his entire building the car, they built another new one, and they raced it 4 to 6 times. 2 weeks later, they were back in Vernon with the same car. One Saturday night at Vernon, racing with Doc Myers, crew members who towed the vehicle had me start the 35, and they ran together for a time in the heats. Back in the day, you could do that and get away with it. His most favorite race car drivers from that time was Tommy Wilson. Later years, he cheered on Moose Curzon Carey. His toughest competitors were Tommy Wilson and Frank Westover and Smokey Joe Norton. His best racing friend was Ralph Redstead, Pop Wilcox, Carl Carpenter, Don, and Cindy Phoenix. His hobbies and his interests now is just taking one day at a time and helping his son restore a 73 Dodge Dart Sport, metal detecting and car cruising. With that, I'd like to introduce Frank E. Webb. Along with that, his son, he built quite a career for himself right here at Mid-State Speedway. And last year, he come to our event for the first time. Frank used to handle the flags as assistant flagger for Don Phoenix. We had the flag holder out there, and I said, well, come here, I'd like to show you something. He knelt down on the ground, and he looked at me and said, you wouldn't realize how many times I picked this out of the trunk for Don Phoenix and set this up and being his assistant starter. And with that, I asked him, I said, would you like to be inducted into the Hall of Fame? And the strangest look come on his face, and he said, why me? I said, you're an important part of the Speedway. You helped build it and shape it into what it is today. We tried to locate his flags that were handmade by his mom. I personally stopped to the New Berlin motocross track where these flags were used to officiate the very first motocross ever held there. They think they may be in the attic. With all that's been going on this year, they really haven't had a chance to look for them, but if they do find them, they are coming home to us. With that, I would like to introduce Frank E. Wright and Frank F. Wright as the 2016 nominees to the Mid-State Hall of Fame. You lean right on me if you have to. Congratulations. Thank you. Can you stand just for a minute longer? Sure. At this time, I have a special presentation, and I would like to have Ruthie Smith, who is a relative of the famous Racing Grayson Smith. She has a presentation she would like to present.
We thought it only appropriate that Dad's niece be the individual from our family. We wanted to do something family, special from the family for Dad. It's difficult to know what to get for somebody that's 97 and a half years old. He will be 98 come this coming January. A year ago when I was here, I was so taken with the gifts that were given to the inductees that I know they changed the format and they went with the plaques, but I said, from the family, I want to do something special like that. So this is something that Dad doesn't know anything about. He may just take it and put it on the window ledge, but we wanted him to have this replica, which is in much, much better shape than how he left the original 35 out here in 1 and 2 after dumping it end over end and rolling it a couple times back into the back 40. So Ruthie, who is Grayson Smith's wife, as I think was just spoken, is going to present that to Dad.
Wow. It's been about 65 years since my name was mentioned in conjunction with the stock car. And then only to hear, and Ruth Smith finished second to Marge Gallup in the Powder Puff Derby. So it's my honor to present this to my uncle, who I think has to be the oldest living recipient of this honor. Into the Stock Car Hall of Fame at 97 years old. And with that being
said, doesn't look like the last one I saw. No. I'd just like to say everybody's had a good time today, and praise the Lord for strength to be here. And I'm glad to see y'all, so many out. It's a real honor to be up here. Thank you.
Thank you.
For you people that have never seen one of them, they are handcrafted out of a block of wood. And these things are gorgeous. This guy up in Harrisville, New York, takes his time when he makes these replicas. They did one for the Falcon out there that my wife owns. The ironic part of this is the hood comes off, and that's got a flathead motor with carburetors and actual spark plug wires on this. Anybody that needs that, get a hold of me and I can get you the mailing address for this guy. He does quality work, and he's very reasonable when he does this. There's a sticker on the bottom of that car, so with you people that have got phones, you can take a picture of that and you will have the guy's address. Next up on our agenda is a Two Brothers race team out of New Berlin, New York. John and Howard Cross, back in the early 60s, decided they wanted to get in the game, but John had already been in it in 1958. He run here at Moore's, had a car, and his first driver with that car was a gentleman by the name of Charlie Wilcox. Well, I've been searching for years for a picture of this Wilcox in a car because I come across the driver's roster with his name, but I could never really pinpoint it. And today I saw a picture in their scrapbook of this car. Now the ironic part of it is, this Charlie Wilcox, I never met the man, but we have a Charlie Wilcox Jr. who lives in our hometown, and his grandson just purchased a house off of my niece. So it's kind of a small world. And through it all, we got the grandson a job. My buddy and I, we got him hired on, and he's driving tractor trailer for Hanson. So it kind of shows you that if you dig into the history of all this, sooner or later stuff comes to life. And I'm kind of glad today that I found these pictures. But anyway, getting back to Howard and John. John's got children: Brent, Rhonda, Sharon, Andre, Howard, Andrea, Shelley, Ronnie. Who was the most influence on their racing career and why? Freddie DeCar. Because we, John and Howard, used to help out on the McCready crew in the 50s. Their first race they attended was at Teenagers here in Morris. What year did they start driving? Owned their first car in 58. Type of car it was: modified stock car. Car number 47 and 103. The tracks that they have competed at. Now I want you to understand, John and Howard had the car number 47 that was raced a long time at Fonda with a long list of drivers, starting out with Maynard Smith. The last man to drive for him was Jerry Townley, and when Jerry wrecked the car, he asked him in a polite way, could he be released, because Floyd Wilcox was looking for a driver, and that brought on more history. But they have raced all over. John has been a big influence in his son's racing career, from the modifieds to the sportsmen. He's run late model. He's been in the ARCA. He's run all over. I've kind of followed him a lot on Facebook as to the type of career he's had, and he's had a pretty successful career running with some pretty big name drivers. I gotta get new glasses. Drivers that drove for the Cross brothers: Jerry Townley, Lee Millington. I can go on. Maynard Smith drove for him. Jack Farquhar wheeled a car for him a few times. And the list just gets bigger. Special recognition: in 2003, John was named NASCAR Mechanic of the Year at Chemung. They competed in the dirt modifieds, the asphalt modifieds, dirt late models, asphalt late models, and ARCA. His hobbies are today traveling and his grandchildren. Charlie Wilcox, Jerry Townley, Lee Millington, Jack Farquhar, Irv Taylor, Robbie Coterry, Skip Roots, Brent Cross, Aaron Cross, and Ronnie Cross have all drove cars at one time or another for the Wilcox brothers. With that, I would like to honor the Wilcox brothers as members of the 2016 Hall of Fame. Congratulations, John. Can you get up there? Yeah, sure.
Last call for the 50-50. If you haven't been in it, if you want to win it, you've got to get in it.
I think
Last call for the 50-50.
that's all right.
Thing here. I got it. Let's let them do their thing. Come on back.
You want to get down on the floor?
Yeah, we can probably do that.
Oh, okay. Just go ahead.
Yeah.
John, you want to get it?
Yes, indeed.
Good seeing you. Yeah.
The last one on my list, I'll turn it back over to Johnny, is Wink Hinckley, a native of Grand Gorge, New York. Started racing at the age of 16. He started driving for his father, W.S. Hinckley and Sons. They owned a big Ford dealership. It was a 1956 Ford. Car numbers that he's drove under: 27, 30, 3. Tracks he's competed at: Morris, Fonda, Malta, Plattsburgh, Devil's Bowl, Utica Rome, Weedsport, Skyline, Green, Brookfield, Thunder Mountain, Cairo, Ackerd, Lebanon Valley, Can-Am, Pencan, 5 Mile Point, and Afton. His first feature win came in 1987 at Fonda. He started racing here in Morris in 1971. Figures he had approximately 5 feature wins. His last race was in Afton Speedway in the year 2000, which he won track championship down there, I believe 5 times, 4 times maybe. He was track champion in the sportsman division. This part here I get a kick out of because when I proofread this, the Grand Gorge Gang, I kind of relate that to what we know as the Loomis Gang out of the 9 Mile Swamp. The Grand Gorge Gang now were race car builders, race car owners, and a collage of people put together involved in automobile racing, and the name there that it just goes on to the people involved out of that Grand Gorge area, where the Loomis Gang, well, they were just robbers and thieves and stole everything they could from the people. But the Grand Gorge Gang was recognized for its outstanding efforts of the sport of auto racing. His favorite driver was Dave Lape. Special recognition, Wink M. Hinckley, his father's. Today he enjoys his hobbies of hunting and vacation, and he's devoted to the fire department there in Grand Gorge. They also sent a write-up on Wink, on his career. In 1971, when he started, he had a big old Ford Galaxy. When these guys put together a car, they used to all team together. And this car over here, they dragged it out of a garage. And when I seen the pictures, I had to laugh because the car was in that barn for so long that when they opened the door fell off the barn hinges, and now I'm seeing the picture leaning against the door. But it just brought back so many memories of him and his racing career, and to think that he had one of the cars under wraps all these years. And with the help of his good friend Ed Doc Selleck, they dragged it out along with a bunch of other guys. But he branched out around 1980 running Utica Rome Devil's Bowl Skyline. He built a new machine, a Mercury Cougar, which again was number 30. In 82, he tried Accord. He seemed to be climbing the top of the ladder in the 80s in the late model division. In 83, when they opened up the 320 class, he decided to jump into that. Some of the late model holdouts were running in the top finishes, and Wink wanted to be among them. In 1984, he purchased his first modified from Maynard Ferret. It was a Grant King chassis, and he bought that from Dick Myers. Dick owned the car, and at the time, Andy Romano was driving it. Grant King number was 30, so he campaigned at Fonda, Albany, Saratoga that year. He looked extremely confident in the new division, picking up several heat wins. Frequently, he would move up and run with the big blocks. 85 and 86. The car was the first Brown and number 30. Second year, Wink added new sheet metal, painted it yellow. He went on to grab a good sponsorship through the deal, and he got Genesee Beer to come on board. And this is a car that I kind of, through the years, remember him finishing up his career with, and it was just a gorgeous car. And that was in 1990. He raced it regularly at Afton Speedway and placed in the top 10 each year in the final point standings. Creative artwork in many of his cars were designed by local artists. One year the design was special to him, who was enlisted, his son Wink Jr., who was enlisted in the United States Air Force with 20 years of service record. He'd like to go on to thank his dealerships, his father's dealership, his mother's insurance company, Hunter Mountain Summer Festivals, Picky's Playthings, Gino and Joe's Pizza, Red's Filling Station, the Carpenters Local 258, Champ Car, Allen L. Howard, T&G Furniture, Minor Oil Company, and Jim's Auto Body, just to mention a few. He tributes much of his success to his pits crew and his mainstays, his chief wrench, Danny Pickett, public relations manager, Don Purcell, Wink Hinckley, Dave Pickett, Ed Harris, Michelle Purcell, and Don Killerhouse. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce Wink Hinckley. That's got nails in it. You can pull it out and put that picture in at a later date, okay?
I'd like to thank everybody. This is a great honor. I feel very privileged. There was one big mistake though. There was never any track champions. I did get feature wins, and the Grand Gorge gang, at one time we were talking, I think there was 8 or 9, maybe even 10 cars came out of Grand Gorge to go racing at different tracks. And some of the guys are here today. It's just a big happy family. We enjoyed racing for a lot of years, a lot of memories, and thank you very much for this honor. Thank you.
One thing I'd like to mention about the car, when they come out of the barn and I saw the pictures, I had to get on the phone and I called a good friend of mine, Bill Rose. And Bill and I talked about that car over the phone, and he said, if you can find blue paint on that car originally was a 28 car, it's got to be a good one. And you know what? The man was right.
We have Billy Rose right here, ladies and gentlemen. If you're wondering what's going on here, we got the Grand Gorge gang. Yeah, the official Grand Gorge gang right here, getting their picture taken.
I have to make an apology and a correction. I misspoke when I was talking about the crosses. I mentioned them as the Wilcoxes. I have to apologize for that. I'm sure Aaron understands. Brent, sorry about that, guys. Sometimes when I do this, you notice I get a little emotional. It takes me back to my childhood days. And I can remember as a kid sitting on the porch and watching that 47 come up 8 and around the corner, heading up to Victoria or Fonda. And behind them you would see the Wilcox car. Behind that you would see the McCready 33. And down over the hill would come Pepper Eastman. Them were the days I remember of them early 60s Sportsman Modifieds from that era. Thanks again, guys.
Yeah, our apologies for that. I also had a request during our break if it would be possible for all of the inductees whose names are on this trophy, if they're with us today, and I mentioned earlier as to the number of people that are in this room that, are so involved and obviously are multi-heroes. My list of heroes is very long, and there are many of them right in this very room. If all of the people that are have been inducted into the Hall of Fame would now stand so that people can take a look at those that are already in the Hall of Fame, if you'd please stand at this time, we'd appreciate it. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. As you can see, Chuck Akulis and Ray Cawley and Don Beagle and Roger Beagle and Don Pierce, Russell Card back there, now Gary. Buddy Hidman, ladies and gentlemen, the 69 track champion is with us today right there. Great Ray Bunzy. Yes, indeed. I mean to tell you, when you continue to keep looking around, Mike Colston, ladies and gentlemen, can take a few minutes out of his busy schedule. If you remember when I inducted Mike, he was off racing as Bob Hackle has had to leave to go and help his grandson race at Devil's Bowl tonight. He's had to throw the 97 on the trailer and off to Vermont. They're gone. They're on I-88. Dick Schoonover, ladies and gentlemen, standing over there in the back. I mean, it's just incredible. Yeah, and Billy Rose. Oh, golly, where could you be without Billy Rose in the white 28s? Yes, indeed. Absolutely. Thank you very much. If you'll now take a seat, we'll induct our last one. Yeah, you can tell how fortunate we are, and it's just an amazing, amazing thing of this craziness that we have, and we certainly want to extend that thanks again to you spouses out there that have put up with so very much. And I trust in the bottom of your heart you know and you understand how precious this business is to us motorheads who just love it and can never get rid of it. I mean, it's a disease, and once it's bit you, you're in, and you're in forever. Ladies and gentlemen, we have another inductee that is from Treadwell, New York, just a short hop over the hill. Joel Canfield, ladies and gentlemen, and he attended his first race at Fonda back in 1959. And from that time on, he lived and breathed stock car racing. Pete Corey, the late, great Pete Corey, was his idol, dashing and daring with Clark Gable mustache. Yeah, he was the kind of man that he wanted to be, this Joel Canfield. He was 18 years old when he started, 1968, with his own car. It was a 57 Ford late model. The number was mainly number 500. With a few races here and there and some other guys' cars. He raced at Fonda. He raced right here at Midstate, Utica Rome, Weedsport, in Cairo, and he started racing here back in 1969. And for those of you that are historians, Morris raced from 1949 to 1973. 73 was when this particular track called it quits. And as much as we hated to see it go, just the racing is gone, the track is still there, and it's pretty much the way you left it. The only thing that's gone around it now are horses from time to time, and a few of us that can get a few laps with a race car. But for the most part, it's still the same. And those that have gone even to the restrooms have said, "Wow, even the restrooms are the same." Yeah, yeah. You still take care of business in the same spots. Yeah. I was hoping that all the paperwork's there for you to take care of things. But yeah, even the restrooms are the same. Not much has really changed. Well, after his last race was in '77 at Fonda, and after having kind of a slowpoke car in his first year, they put together a car for '69, and he finished 5th in the first feature of the year. Pretty proud of that. His most memorable moment in his racing career off the track was the day his son was born, and seeing Elvis. He saw him live twice in concert. His favorite driver was the late, great Pete Corey, as is true with many, especially those Fonda folk. The toughest competitor was Harvey Brundage, and his best racing friend, the late Dave Huff. His accomplishments: the racing business taught him how to weld and to be a car builder and a fabricator. He wanted so badly to drive a race car, but really didn't know much about cars, and it was kind of a sink and swim learning experience for him. But eventually he found, some great cars and built some good cars and had a lot of fun. I'm very involved today with politics, still working full-time with my construction business, the Joel Canfield's Backyard Enterprises. He enjoys taking care of his own 5.5 acres of woods and stream and yard, and vacations in the Bahamas, and each winter for about 6 weeks. So obviously some great things still going on. And would he do anything different in his career? Well, being of an average means we did what we could financially with the race cars. And so I don't think that I could have gone any other way than the way that we did it. Ladies and gentlemen, the driver of the red and white, number 500, Joel Cantfield. Congratulations, Joel. There's your plaque. Say a few words to the folks?
That's funny about the men's room. I'm proud that the fairgrounds here haven't gone fancy schmancy. They have the traditional one that they had back in '69 when I first came here. Like you mentioned, my idol was Pete Corey, and I wanted to be just like Pete Corey. Well, let me tell you, Pete Corey is a real tough act to follow. But we did what we could. I learned a lot. We met a lot of nice people, made some friends, had a lot of good times, enjoyed ourselves. And it's funny, the gentleman mentioned about the dust here. In the hot summer, we'd be out on the track, and it'd be so dusty, and this is a true story. I'd come down the front stretch. I didn't know where the first turn was, so what I did is I'd count to 5 and figure that's where the turn was. It's not real scientific, but you could not see it was that dusty. But one thing I really want to mention, I just want a quick list. Everybody here in the racing game knows that you can't do it alone. You need a lot of good helpers, and over the years I had a lot of good friends, a lot of good helpers. I'm going to read a quick list of names, and this won't be like the Academy Awards. I won't put you to sleep. Ronnie and Ken Roble, Skip Ballou, Pete Crawford and Jace Collins, Bobby Trout, Bruce Hicks, Les Hazard, Jeff Baker, Jeff Montoni, and Donnie Hoffman. And thank you so much. This means a lot to me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Joel Canfield, the driver of that beautiful red and white number 500. Yes, indeed. Okay, so we've got some winners. Mike's putting together the names of the winners that came to us for the cruise-in. I don't know what happened to the Doodlebug Club. They must have turned the wrong direction or something. They have so many things going on as well. We also have a 50-50 here, and that's on the white ticket. and then we're going to have some door prizes to give out. So start getting those items together. You know, you just mentioned how many seconds you'd count off. I remember talking to Ray Bunzy, and perhaps he'll give you the answer to this one. Ray, how many seconds was it down the back straightaway before you had to turn left? 6, yeah. Yeah, Ray Bunzy shared with me some interesting experiences fighting through the dust here. And yeah, it was different techniques. I know when I won a feature at Brookfield in the Mid-State Vintage Club, I had Will Cagle's coupe out there, and here I am sailing around on the cinders. And I used to use the pigtail light that hung down from the Brookfield Fire Department refreshment booth as kind of a reference point of where the fourth corner was. Because Brookfield being a D-shaped oval, you wanted to make sure you were headed in the right direction coming off turn 4. All right, so as they say, somebody's going to go with a pocket full of dough. Yes, we have to thank Miranda for doing our 50-50. She's been instrumental in doing that each year. The winning, are you ready for this? $101 to the winner today. Yes, indeed. So it'll be worth coming if you win this, huh? We're into the white tickets, folks. I got mine. Are you ready? Here we go. 551 23 86. 2386. The last 4 numbers. All right. For $101 to Mike Colston. And Mike Colston turns it right around and gives it back to the club. How do you like that, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you very much, Mike Colston. Yep, turn the money right back over to the club. Yes, indeed. So all those things you've said about Mike Colston, think again. Yes, indeed.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for showing up today and being a big part of our Hall of Fame. And I'd like to bid you a farewell and a safe drive home.